What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, we're back at it once again with another session of Random Invasions. Now, I haven't done one of these videos in a long time, despite the fact that I love Random Invasions just about more than anything. As a matter of fact, if I had to rank my own personal preferences, I would probably rank forest hunting first, random invasion second, and last but not least, unfortunately, duels. Now this is not to say that I think duels are bad. It's just ranking them based upon my own personal preferences, right? Because there are absolutely no limitations to the first two, right? There's no unsaid code of ethics that other players assume that you're supposed to play by, right? You don't have to get accused of being a tryhard during random invasions or ganker hunting. You don't have to be accused of anything because it's a random invasion. Now, I know some of you guys may say to yourself, like, well, you don't even necessarily have to abide by those rules during duels. No, you don't, but it's kind of like an unspoken thing, right? It's kind of like a unspoken, but somewhat understood code of ethics that during, as a matter of fact, I even support these so-called code of ethics during fight clubs, during red soapstone summon sign arrangements, during tournaments, or any other prearranged series of matches for which both parties or all parties agree to a certain set of rules. I think there should be a certain level of ethics. But random invasions, I mean, you can go to town. And for a lot of you guys that may be new to my videos, and you say all you do is backstab fish, all you do is this, or all you do is that, right? Because the funny thing about it is, I get this claim 9 times out of 10 during my forest hunting videos, which are not ideal conditions, and sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes during my random invasions videos, which are not ideal conditions, right? But what they don't understand about the brigade is that my own personal code, right? Because I don't believe in going by somebody else's rule. I play by my own rules. My own rules are outlined in a 2-part video series that I have on my channel titled Duel Like a Duelist, but Invade Like an Invader. So if you guys may be new to the channel, and you may be, from the Honor Brigade, one of these, forums or chats that tell you that you need to bow before and after every single thing, go ahead and familiarize yourself with the 2-part series that I have on my channel. Duel Like a Duelist, Invade Like an Invader. It will outline for you the standards that I have set for myself, which are, during random invasions, do whatever you like. Now, your opponent might not like it. They may frown upon it. But so what? Right? We didn't establish any rules. It's no fight club. There's no red soapstone summon sign summon. And it's not a prearrangement. That's why it is called random. You never know what you're going to get. And you should have zero expectations during random invasions. And this is why I think they are the most fun. You can use hornet rings, buffs. Now, this is not to say that you can't use hornet rings or buffs during anything else. But, I mean, it's all-out war for the most part. That's how I approach random invasions. Zero restrictions. Only restrictions that I have are the ones that I place on myself. So that's it about that. Now, let's get into this video series. Not that I've rambled enough about that. This is going to be a multi-part series that not only will include random invasions, but it's basically going to kind of review over my invasion builds. right? Because as I've mentioned in the past, I prefer random invasions. Random invasions and forest hunting. That's my bread and butter. I enjoy it more than anything. So, for my forest hunting, usually I stay at somewhere around 125 to 130. But 99% of the time, they're 125 builds. But for my random invasions, I cap off at 105. So all the builds that you see are soul level 105. Now, for random invasions, I think 105 is perfect. Why do I think it's perfect? Because for the most part, you can get invasions everywhere. I mean, look at it, guys. I'm in Blighttown, for crying out loud. I mean, how often do you really see people doing invasions in Blighttown? Not too often, right? Because this is not one of those well-known invasion areas. But see, the thing is, I don't like to go to well-known invasion areas, right? Because there's so many different worlds in Lordran that why would I limit myself to Ulasil Township, you know, and some of these other areas? There's no reason to limit yourself, so I try not to. Now, this is not to say that I won't invade Ulasil Township or some of these other popular invasion areas. But me, I kind of like to invade, you know, Blighttown, the Depths, the Painted World, Duke's Archives, and a few of these other areas. And I think soul level 105 is perfect because, you know, it's too high to be considered trolling, right? Because I'm not one of those guys that like beating up on lower levels. As a matter of fact, that's just kind of boring to me. You know, you're soul level 4 and you're going around with elemental weapons. Now, I'm not talking against it. I'm just saying it's boring to me. And as a matter of fact, for a lot of you guys that call yourself good, I don't even understand why you would even use an elemental weapon. I mean, if you're that good, why not just use raw weapons? If you're going to invade at soul level 10 or, you know, under soul level 30, just use raw weapons, right? Because in other words, with as well as you play, why would you need overpowered elemental weapons? Then again, I don't want to throw anybody off track. That's just a personal thing. So 105 is perfect for me. Alright, so enough about that. Since we're talking about my invasion builds, let's just go ahead and discuss this one. Now, in part 1, it's only going to feature this build because actually after I did these invasions, I didn't really come up with the idea of, you know, reviewing my invasions build until after I was done. You know, I just kind of messed around with a few builds after a few days and I said to myself, you know what, let me just kind of talk about a few of my invasion builds, for which in this multi-part series it will feature at least 3, actually at least 4. As a matter of fact, I have 4 going on right now and I'm thinking about including a 5th one. Right, so by the time I get done with the final phase of this series, you guys will see at least 4, but more than likely 5 builds. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, at least 4, but no more than 5 builds. This right here is my Dexterity build. Right, like I've said before, some of you guys will call it quality. I call it Dexterity. In the event that you guys are kind of new to the game, you know, I call it a Dexterity because it would allow me to use the Murakumo, which is the heaviest Dexterity weapon, right? The Murakumo is definitely a Dexterity weapon. Granted, it will require 28 strength because it's so large, but in order for you to get the most out of it, you will need to pump points into Dexterity. It's a Dexterity weapon. So the 2840 allows me to use all of the Dexterity weapons. Now, if I were to two-handed, I would be able to use some strength weapons, right? So, you know, some people would consider it a quality. I call it a Dexterity. I mean, but, you know, I wouldn't get hung up over these titles, you know. I'm not one of these guys who think, you know, my word is gospel, right? So if you get somebody else who say, hey, forget what the brigade said, it's a quality build. So what, dude? I don't get hung up over dumb stuff like that. As a matter of fact, having that conversation is almost semantics, right? In other words, I say dexterity, you say quality. Big deal, because they both function the same. Now, this particular build is perfect, in my personal opinion, the way I created it. It's a 2840, and it allows me to use my shield, my armor, and 12 units worth of weapons. So if you guys notice, I have a halberd, and a lot of times I'll switch out. As a matter of fact, I think it's a little heavier than 12 units. I think I can use 13 and a half units, because I do have an option for me to use the Murakumo and a rapier. Yeah, the max weapon loadout for this particular build is 13 and a half units, which for a level 105, I would say that that's perfect. Like I said before, I can use 2 6-unit weapons, or, I mean, if you just want to get groovy with it, I can use a Zweihander with a rapier, or I can use a, I don't know, Murakumo with a dark silver tracer. You know, so I really have a lot of possibilities with my 2840 version, right? And that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love this build. So strength and weaknesses. Strengths, I mean, you got infinite possibilities. Weaknesses, now here's another thing about the strength I forgot to add. This particular build has 53 poise, right? So this is one of my higher poised builds. Most of my builds only have 42, but this one has 43. I mean, I really couldn't find a good armor set for this particular build that would allow me to carry heavy weapon loadout and still have pretty decent poise all at the same time. Not at level 105, right? Because, as a matter of fact, I think I only have like 33 in endurance, 33 or 32. So my endurance is actually relatively low. So, I mean, I really couldn't get everything all in this one build. So, I mean, hey, I'm just taking the 53 poise and the wide variety of weapons. Now, cons, as far as, I think the only con I would say is, I mean, the armor set has really low defense. I mean, I think my defense is something like 320, you know, 313, 330 at most. I have about 330. So, you know, compared to some of these guys who like to use full night set, elite night set, giant sets, I mean, the defense is relatively weak. But I have the potential to use a lot of strong weapons. So, I mean, some of these things just kind of balance or counterbalance other things. Right. So that's pretty much it for this particular build. Like I said before, this part 1 of this series is only going to feature this particular build. Because like I said, I mean, I was just going throughout the week doing random invasions. I really didn't think about doing this whole random invasion / build showcase until later on, you know, after I start putting this video together. So part 1 will only include my dexterity build. Part 2 will include my cleric and my intelligence build. And like I said before, all of these builds are soul level 105. Now, these particular videos will be relatively short. I mean, I know a lot of my videos are like 20 minutes plus, right? But since I'm just kind of doing random invasion / a build showcase, I mean, I really don't need a long video just for that. I mean, 15 to 20 minutes tops is perfect. Now, since I'm doing a build showcase of my own builds, what I'm thinking about doing, right, just to add a little excitement to the Dark Souls uploads, is, you know, the good old, you know, high-speed honor dudes over at the wiki spaces. Shout out to them. You know, those guys do a lot of great work over there on the forums over at the wiki spaces, and they provide a lot of awesome information. So if you guys are kind of new to Dark Souls and you're kind of lost, you know, and, you know, you're just kind of getting some information from videos, but you still have a lot of unanswered questions, go ahead and visit the Dark Souls wiki spaces. I mean, they have all types of information, even information for beginners that I'm pretty sure everyone will find useful. Alright, so enough about the shout out to the wiki spaces. Now, they do have a page where they list a lot of PvP builds, right? And one thing I haven't noticed is that, I haven't noticed anyone really reviewing those builds. So what I think I'm going to do is, after I do my series of my own invasions build, I think I'm going to try to just take one build at a time and dedicate a 10 to 15 minute review of the build, right? So think about it. If you guys are kind of new to Dark Souls and you're kind of visiting the wiki spaces and you're thinking to yourself like, well, I'm not really too sure on what to do with regard to builds. I don't really know where to start. I don't know where to go with it. So maybe I'll try some of these builds. Perhaps the review that I'm going to do on these builds might be helpful. Because think about it. You can read any Joe Smuck's description of his build all day long. But to see it in action and to hear someone talk about its pros and cons is something totally different, right? Because there's Joe Schmucks everywhere, right? Joe Schmucks got opinions from, they pull opinions from everywhere, right? Just like, well, I don't want to get too smart, so I'll just leave it at that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Right, so in other words, I think that would be my thing. Good old Mr. I Won't Forget, he got his weapons thing going on. Good old Sunlight Blade, he's got his top 10s going on. One thing that I'm going to do, and actually is going to keep consistent with my Battle of the Build series, I'm going to do build profiles. That's going to be my thing. So, in addition to everything else I did, I've done, Battle of the Uploaders, Rumble in the Jungle, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to go ahead, after I do my own personal builds, I'm going to take each build one by one and I'm going to showcase them as they're explained on the wiki spaces. So that's pretty much it, guys. This is part 1 of the multi-part series. I hope you enjoyed it so far, and I hope you're looking forward to watching my other builds, invasion builds. So hey, until next time, Martyrs Brigade is out.